glad that we've got so much interest in opportunities to do work with the city. Put a lot of effort over the past few months coming up with kind of packages for small contractors, particularly small, just small businesses that can do work for the city and provides opportunities for both the businesses and for the city. We really need to kind of expand our contractor pool, particularly for small businesses. So I'm just going to go through quickly kind of what you're going to see here. We're going to do three, in addition to myself, we'll have two presenters. First, you're going to hear about from our assistant, Leslie Beek, our assistant city engineer. She's going to talk about the project itself. She's going to go through kind of generally public works contracts and specifically what the street sign installations are going to look like. And then city attorney Michael Schmidt's going to talk about the procurement process itself. He'll walk through the process, but then also a lot of the legal requirements associated with bidding on city contracts. I'm not going to be upset if you ask questions, but if you have something that's not directly specific to something that is mentioned, then we'll just ask a question. We'll have Q&A at the end. Really, our objectives with this program, we really do want to facilitate access to opportunities for small businesses. The city does have a challenge in many of its contracts just because the contractor pool is not that large, and having an opportunity for small businesses to participate is good for us. We want to lower those barriers, and part of what we want to do this evening is kind of talk about the rules of procurement so that, as a small business goes to bid on a contract, they know exactly what they need to do and, the things that they need to pay attention to. One of the things that I just want to mention too is you do not need to be certified, MBE, WBE, both. There's no certification requirements to bid on contracts. So I don't want anyone to feel like they can't, bid on something just because they're not certified. Before we continue, I want to make a note. Please be sure to sign in. When Michael goes through and talks about the requirements associated with procurement, what he's going to talk about is, who is going to get the solicitation for bids. So you need to be on the list. We need to have your contact information in order for us to send you the request for bids. So please don't leave without signing the sheet, making sure that we at least have your contact information. Flipping back, I want to bring my colleague Bianca Jones up here briefly. Bianca is our manager within our inclusion project. On the issue of certification, she's just going to say a few words because certification, even though it's not required for you to bid on contracts, it's a good thing to have if you're a minority or women-owned business because it does present additional opportunities. So while she's talking, I'm going to give each table a set of handouts that
well, I hope everyone's staying warm as possible this evening. It's freezing. Ice is not my friend. But I'm bringing up the minority-owned and women-owned business certification. Now, while, like Eric said, it's not required in order to do business with the city, it is something that is very beneficial for us to keep track of how many minority businesses we are working with. So that way, every dollar that we spend with our minority community and women-owned community, women-owned business community is counted in our goals. So with that being said, the handout that's being passed around is a quick little FAQ, so if you have any questions, typically, like the questions that I've received are on there. There's also an application on there. The application is not for you to fill out, it's really just for you to see all the documentation that would be required should you be interested in becoming a minority-owned and women-owned business enterprise, receive certification. Coming in the future, we'll be having trainings in order to get you certified and get you started in that process. But that will come down a little bit later in the future. But signing in is super important so that way we can stay in contact and give you that information. And also notate if you are interested in certification on that sign-in sheet. That's all I have.
I guess before we get into it, any questions?
Yes. Any questions about that?
Further beyond there. Then we'll get into the details of the actual street sign installation project. So I'm going to bring up our colleague Leslie B. Leslie's going to talk about kind of the project.
Hello everyone, I'm Leslie B., Assistant City Engineer at South Bend, and I'll be talking about the specifics of the project. And again, make sure you sign in. We'll keep repeating that. We want to make sure that we have everybody's contact information and we can reach out to you, because there will be a follow-up demonstration that will be needed to be able to quote. If you were at the site installation demonstration before, it's the same one. So you can do it again, but we want to make sure that everybody who's interested knows what the city requirements are. All right, so a few years ago, we established some emergency snow route so that during an emergency snowfall event like the one we just had, we could plow the primary roads efficiently so that we can declare an emergency snow route and people would not be allowed to park on those roads. And so these signs would communicate that so that that we can clear the roads efficiently. As a result, there's a lot of signs that we have to install and a lot more that our traffic department can install quickly. So we carved out 3 different divisions for 50 signs each, and so the different colors on here are the different divisions, and so this is what we'll be quoting on. Okay, so the Division 1 is all on South Michigan Street, it's in blue. Division 2 is on South Main, a little bit on Michigan, and also on Western, that's in green. And Division 3 is in yellow, it's primarily Lincoln Way and Madison. It also includes Lafayette, Marion, and Williams. So this is taken from our spec document. In the packet, there is a draft language for the spec document for you to review. This details our requirements for sign installation, and this basically states that the price that you get includes all of the work and labor that's needed to install these signs. The actual signs, we'll be providing those. We've made about 200 of these signs already, so with all the actual signs, that helps to give consistency, and we're able to track the signs better if we make them in-house, but everything else will need to be provided by the contractor. And the quote is broken into 3 divisions, as I said. The contractor can decide to quote on any or all of the divisions, and will award based on the division, so it is possible to have 3 different contractors on this job, but it'll go to the lowest responsive and responsible quoter for that division. And for the signs, we do want to make sure we work with you heavily. So we're going into this assuming that there may be some people that haven't installed signs before, so we want to make sure that we give you all the information that you need to install them correctly. So before any installations happen, we want to make sure we meet on site with you to confirm the location, make sure your utility locates are called in and marked, and make sure that the signs are installed properly. And once you get going and we feel more comfortable, that we may not need to observe every single sign installation, but we want to feel comfortable that it's done correctly. And if there is an issue and it's not done for our standard, then you would be required to make it right. So we want to set it up for success. Okay, and also, by submitting a quote, you are agreed to following our standards. So on this page, it shows the exact standard specifications. That's for site installation. We do have that in our resource packet for the EDOT specs as well as our city standards. So we want to make sure you familiarize yourself with that. If you have any questions about those specifics, those specifications specifically, you can reach out to me and let me know. Again, we are assuming that some of you may not have sign installation experience. So in order to quote on this project, we are requiring attendance at a sign installation demonstration that will be performed by our traffic department. Due to the condition of the ground being frozen, we can't really do that right now. So we'll have to schedule that once we can install signs in the ground for that demonstration. So that's another reason why it's important to fill out the sign-in sheet legibly so we can let you know when that will be. And again, if you were in if you attended the demonstration last year, it will be the same demonstration. Just make sure that you put that you attended, which one you put. This is also included in the quote packet. This is what you would fill out to give the prices for your quote. And so you would fill out the unit price for each sign installation and then how much it would be to install all 50 signs for that division. If there is a discrepancy, we go with the unit price. So it's good to check your math, make sure it's correct. And again, you can choose to quote on Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, any combination, and we'll go with the lowest quote for that division. You also need to certify that you were at this training and also the to-be scheduled sign installation training. And then here are some equipment that you would need for the sign installation. There's not a whole lot that is needed for this, so that's why we thought it would be a good project to start off with for the small local businesses. We require a 10-foot post, and the shorter 2.5-foot post is the breakaway that's installed into the ground. Just a slightly bit bigger than the 10-foot post, so it'll slide in and get secured, and that helps if it were to be hit by a car, the top would break off and then the bottom would still be in the ground, so we can just install the sign back without having to call and locate them. You do need a method to put the post in the ground. We use a post driver, but we don't dictate the method, so any way to get the post into the ground and leave it like 6 inches above the ground is up to you as long as it's straight and steady. Before you do the work, you'll want to put parking signs, because all of these places have parking. That's the reason why we chose these locations. So you want to make sure people aren't parked there before you do the work. That ensures that you have the adequate room to do the work, and it also ensures that there's no damage to private property. So you want to post that in advance. We also use spray paint to mark where we want the utility locates to be done. We also have those yellow signs, but those aren't required. It's just a nice touch that we do. And then also you'll need a screwdriver, nuts and bolts, and a level. This will be more covered in the sign installation demonstration, but we'll cover utility locates in a later slide. One important part of our city projects and roadways is maintenance of traffic. So we follow MUTCD guidelines. That's the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So these are two that I've selected that will most likely be what you'll need for this job. It will be site specific, so if there is an area that's different than the others where you'll have to be affecting traffic, then it'll require more traffic control. But since these will be on the side of the road and there'll be parking available, you won't have to impact the travel lanes. So you will have to sign that there's road work ahead and you may need to use some cones, but you won't need to use barricades or shift traffic. You should be working off of the roadway. And then prior to doing the work, you would need 2 permits with the city. That's the traffic control and occupancy permit and the excavation permit. Those are both required because you'll be pounding into the ground, so you'll need the excavation. To get a permit with the city, you do need to be licensed and bonded with the city in order to do any work. Also, before you do any work, you will need to call in locates. You have to call in 811 to have them mark the locations. And you're supposed to call 2 days in advance, but you might want to give them about a week. Sometimes they can take a little longer. The locates are good for 20 days, I believe, after you call it in. So you may need to work on kind of a rolling schedule with your locates. So you might just want to call in the work that you plan to do the following week and just call in once a week so that they're able to kind of keep up with the workload and that your tickets don't expire. That's a bit of a recap of what we talked about. A lot of this information is in the packet. You can get one. We have 2 different versions. They're pretty much the same. I just wanted to run through. We have a checklist of information that we talked about today, things that you may need, things you may need to do in order to do the work, and resources that you may want to look at. Those are a lot of the links that I was talking about. We have a copy of the permits that I was talking about, both permits, and the fees associated with that. And we also have a draft copy of the quote document. It's not finalized yet, so make sure you don't submit this version. We were trying to make it clear that this was a draft because we still have some tweaks to do before we send it out. And we're going to wait until that sign installation demonstration has been given before we send out the quote. And we don't have a due date or a completion date in here yet. That's under prosecution in progress. We'll put a completion date for the work, and we'll make sure to put in a date that's achievable and reasonable. So we'll give you enough time to do the work, but we just want to make sure the work doesn't linger too long. So if you have any issues with that, if you're looking at the quote, make sure to ask if you want to be able to meet that timeline. That is one thing, that if you submit a quote, you are agreeing to the timeline as well as agreeing to meeting our specs. I think that's all in the packet. So I will pass it on to Schmidt.
All right, everybody hear me okay? Well, I appreciate everyone showing up tonight on this cold evening. I want to give special thanks to the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and Cynthia Simmons-Taylor and her team. I also want to thank Caleb Bauer and Eric Fivich from Community Investment, and Leslie from Mercy Engineers, and all of the other support members of the city that have helped out here. Special recognition also to Paula Sowers and to Murray Miller for their support and showing up this evening. I apologize, this is a boring presentation. There's no way to get through this mug without being a little bit dry, but I will try to spice it up where I can. I'm also open for questions. I think that I'm the last speaker, is that right? Yeah. So it's okay to interrupt me if you don't, if you have any questions. We'll get through it, but bear with me. It's dry material. There's only so much I can do with it. So, basic topics here. So again, I'm one of the assistant city attorneys for the city. We're going to talk a little bit about my background, city structure, and the basics of doing business with the city. I have been with the city now just over 9 years, in a variety of roles, from 2 stints in the legal department to also being the city's director of purchasing. I have sort of lived in this world for the last 9 years, representing Public Works, Parks Department, Human Rights, and Office of Diversity and Inclusion. I've seen almost everything that's come through here as far as projects and contracts that the city's dealt with. So I have a little bit of experience in this, and hopefully I can convey some of this stuff in the simplest of forms. All right. What I'm not good at is PowerPoint. All right, so basically, city structure, if you think about how we do business, we're just a city of South Bend, but we have to follow the laws that are set by the state. And so there's 3 key provisions that we've really got to follow. It's the procurement of goods. It's a fancy word for how do I buy my supplies that I need. Procurement of services. How do I hire the people that I need to do, lawyers, accountants, folks that go out and will do, pest control, lawn mowing, those types of services, to then public works. And they're all governed by different statutory frameworks. The project that we're talking about today is a public work project. It might not seem like it. We're talking about putting signs in sidewalk. The sidewalk is in the right of way. We're making an improvement to that right of way. Therefore, it constitutes a public work. So we're living in this world, got a little bit cut off here, but Indiana Code 36.1.12 for you nerds like me at home that want to play along. I also like to just kind of give a little background here. I see a couple of familiar faces, but I see generally a lot of new faces here, and I'm happy to see you guys. But I always like to mention when I'm in front of the community of kind of what it is that the city spends, who we spend it with, how do we spend it. So it gives you kind of a general idea of there's a lot of money flowing through the city. $153 million in purchase orders. Now that ranges in everything that you can imagine, from buying pencils to putting in new roads to the Dream Project. It's a pretty broad spectrum of how we spend the money. But of that $153 million, you're talking almost 7,300 different purchase orders and almost 2,000 different vendors throughout the community and the country, because we have a handful of folks that come from outside of Indiana that we do business with. There's opportunity there. That number of 1,915 vendors is up several hundred from last year. So we're looking for opportunities to continue to grow. And what I like to tell people is that I want the money to stay at home. We got to follow the law. We got to follow the programs. But if we can grow South Bend, our community, if we can can keep the jobs, that's great, that's wonderful, that's what we're striving to do, and that's certainly what we're trying to do with this project. We want to cultivate that small local business. We want them to grow, we want them to have success, we want their neighbors to see them have success, we want their neighbors to come to us and see if there's opportunities to be part of the program and part of the city as well. So a little bit of just commingling my responsibilities with our Department of Procurement is I put some links up here that will be in your materials of just how do I get registered. It's an online process. You can also do it by paper if you want. If you're old-fashioned, I can prefer the paper. But there is a link to get registered. And then I also put some links up there that are just, maybe this project isn't right for you, maybe the timing's not right. You know, check out these other websites that I've got on the right here, because you'll know when the city is advertising new projects or new things are coming about. It's a great place to check. It's not a perfect list, right? But it's a good way to kind of check in and periodically see what opportunities might be available. All right, so let's jump into the nerdy stuff. Okay, this is my little chart, this is my little handbook, if you will, that I go through my internal analysis of, does this meet the definition of a public work project? You know, is the contract, this is state law here, is the contract for construction, reconstruction, alteration, renovation of a public building, including a highway, street, alley, bridge, sewer drain, or other improvement paid for by a public owner special assessment. So we're going to look at the signed installment. I kind of touched upon this earlier. You know, yes, this is going to be a contract for the alteration and for the improvement of the city right away. So right there on my grid, I'm moving over to the yes category. So now I know that I'm following Indiana Code 36112. If it wasn't, if it didn't meet that, like I said, where I went through these services, and looking for a hire lawyer, accountant, lawnmower, I'm going to the right there. I'm running through a different analysis. We're going to live in the public works spectrum here. So once I'm living in this code here, this Indiana 36112, I've got a variety of different levels of how I have to do work. And that's the state law basically saying, hey, I need to give my governmental entities, my municipalities, my counties, I need to give them some flexibility for how they do work. And that flexibility is built in on different cost levels. So you can see here we've got 25,000, we've got 50,000, and I think you know, it kind of goes up. The process here that's to be noted is that the greater the dollar amount, the bigger the project, the more hurdles you've got to jump through. I can't tell you, hopefully we get all of you guys that are interested in this project, I can't tell you what to bid and what price you're going to be. But when the city sends out a quote, that's a trigger that says, hey, I need to be thinking about $150,000 or less. That's my budget, right? Because if I'm above $150,000, now I'm in a bidding scenario, not a quoting. Bidding is a lot more formal. There's a lot more requirements to go into it. You can also see that at these different dollar amounts, you know, you got a simple quote, formal quote, different hurdles that you got to jump through. The best I can kind of explain it is, think about sometimes that the city needs to do some quick repair work or something like the sign installation. You know, that dollar amount might not be super high and the community has a need to get it fixed right away or to get it addressed right away. Whereas some projects, I'm going to use the Dream Center project, you know, that's a bigger project. It's going to be a longer time frame to get done. They don't need to act as quickly so that it takes more time to, hey, can I find subcontractors to do my work? Can I do this? Give people more time to be able to put together more thorough bids, to be able to get bonds, to get insurance, to find staff to come to work on the project. The smaller the project, the more flexible we are. The less hoops we have to jump through. So when I'm thinking about this $50,000 threshold, the requirements of the city are we only have to solicit 3 quotes. And when we say solicit, that means I need to call up somebody that I know that works in this business or send an email to them that works in this industry and say, here's the project I'm looking for. It's not going to be a 62-page specification that you're going to get as to how to do the project because it's a simpler project. I don't need to meet the basic requirements, I don't need to get responses back from 3 companies. I just need to solicit 3 companies. I need to ask them in good faith, can you do this work? Oftentimes, you will only get back one quote. Sometimes somebody's busy. This is why these opportunities in front of the community are great, because we need to learn who else can do this work, because we run in that situation a lot, where we solicit 3 or 4 folks, but there's only availability of maybe 1 or 2 companies. And when there's not good competition, then the prices go up, right? So the more that we know is out there that can do this work, the better for the city, and that's kind of how the law works. When we send out the quote package, the solicitation group, we're looking for 7 days. We're looking for a quick response. We got to get this work done. You guys got to know that this work is going to be coming too. You guys got scheduling that you're doing. So we're looking for a fairly quick turnaround. The city has an obligation under law to accept the lowest responsible and responsive quote. We can also reject all quotes if somebody's not responsible or over budget on our quotes. The city's got a budget for every project. If we're thinking that something should cost $25,000 and all the quotes come back at $100,000, we don't have to accept it. If under this particular simple quote procedure that we're talking about here, I am authorized, if I reject all quotes, to go out and just call up, hey, Leslie, I need you to do this work. Can you do it? There is no, I went through all the process, I solicited 3 quotes, nobody could do it, we rejected those 3 quotes. I can now pick up the phone and call one person, and it's a little bit less transparent, right? But I need to get that work done. I can't be stuck here, and the community can't be stuck with this void because I can't find someone to do the work. So that's why the law is set up that way. Only at this dollar amount, it changes as we get into more formal work. So I segue into my formal quote procedure. Again, I just need to invite, solicit 3 folks to do the work here. But now, I need to have the quote sent back to the board. We need to open up responses in public. We need to read it aloud. There needs to be this record. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term Board of Public Works. Board of Public Works is going to do that process. Whereas when I'm in the informal quote process, it can be a project manager. In this particular case, you Leslie, assume that you're going to be a project manager. You're going to submit quotes to Leslie, and Leslie's going to take that quote and bring it to the board and ask them to award. But when you're in the formal quote world, at $50,000 to $150,000, now we're at the board, and the board's opening some of those quotes. You're submitting it to an online mechanism, and then we're going to open them at a public meeting. We're going to read them into the record. They're going to be reviewed. And at another meeting, they're going to come back, and we're going to try to award those to the lowest, again, responsible and responsive bidder. And I'll get into those definitions here shortly. All right, now I touched on this a little bit. I'm not going to focus in on this, but it's in the material, is once I'm above $150,000, I'm getting into, now I'm no longer quoting work, I'm bidding work. There's that extra process involved here. I've got formal specifications. Those specifications are usually prepared by a formal engineer outside of the city. So there's what we call an outside consultant that's been on the project. These plans get filed on websites. They get put on our city website, I believe, and art, so that they're available to get out there. It is the onus of the contractor to be able to access those specs, to be able to read those specs and understand them, and potentially ask questions. We publish, in local newspapers. We usually, again, these are state requirements that we do this stuff. We tell you where the specs are going to be. We tell you when time you have to submit your bids back to the city. And again, if the project is, the more expensive the project, once you cross that $25 million threshold, it becomes another hoop to jump through. I've got a couple of things on here because I wanted to just briefly touch on it. Again, it's going to be in your notes, but we often hear about the city is difficult to do business with. And sometimes that's true, right? But some of these things, most of these things are driven by the state, by the law that we have to follow. When we're talking about $150,000 or more, we're talking about requirements to have bid bonds, performance bonds. That's not the city's choice. We don't have an ability to waive a requirement of a contractor in this world. That's, again, it's driven by the state law. Also, when we're doing bids at this threshold, if we don't get any responsive bids back, we have to reject everything. We got to go out and rebid it again. There is no calling up somebody and saying, can you do this work? If I've got a street project and it's going to be, maybe $1 million project, and we don't get back responsive bids or anything that we can accept, we can't just call up somebody that does the work. We got to go bid it again. The state law does not allow us to have any flexibility in this. It must be, public bidding must be transparent, period. All right, you saw me use these terms, responsive bidder. That's basically, are you someone that has followed the law, followed our forms, submitted things that are consistent with what we've required in that bid package, which you guys hopefully all have here? Did you follow instructions? It's kind of the best way to do it. Responsibility. Do you have the ability to do the work? Are you capable, competent, experienced enough to do the work? And again, this is just for your materials. These are the state laws that reference when I need a bid bond, how much it is, when I need a performance bond, how does it take. I'm not going to spend too much time on that stuff because it's getting in the weeds. And they're not as applicable to this particular project that we're trying to get off the ground here. But it's there for your light reading when you want to fall asleep tonight. All right. One of the other things that's again, it's a requirement by the state. This is not the city of South Bend trying to make people jump through hoops. This is state guidance on this. In your quote form, you'll see that we have what's required is the city's affidavit. What does this really mean, right? And I can tell you that lots of people just sign it, and they don't think through what it means and what the requirements are, what we're asking. But I wanted to touch on sort of the three things here. There's actually 4 requirements in the affidavit, but I wanted to speak to kind of the 3 big ones. The 4th one that I didn't put on here is that you have to, this is a federal law, but you have to disclose that you're not doing business with Iran. Because of the federal government's restrictions on doing business with Iran. But probably pretty safe here for our project that we're okay on that, so I didn't mention it. But E-Verify. E-Verify is, again, it's a program that the state has adopted. It's generally, it's a federal program that's come down. It's basically that you're representing that you and your employees do not openly employ unauthorized workers. You need to sign this in order to do business with the city. Oftentimes the city, this is part of the requirement of getting money from the state and or federal money. Non-debarment, that's a fancy word for, are you barred from doing work or in the city or in the state or with the federal government? Have you engaged in some sort of illegal activity that you have some sort of prohibition? In my 9 years, I'm not aware of anyone who has ever fallen into this category of being barred from doing business with the city. But you again need to verify that you're